Okay, welcome along to Memory Issues Month. I'm chatting with Wendy Windle. Wendy, do you want to just tell us a bit about what you do?
Hello there. I am Wendy Windle, the Love Your Bloody Self coach, because honestly, if I could wave a magic wand over, well, let's not say the whole world, never just women, I'd say, love your bloody self, done. Let's sit back and enjoy life. So that's what I
Okay.
help people do. I help people dig deep and learn how to love themselves, which goes way beyond having a bath and a cupcake.
Totally does. Totally. This idea that self-care is just a few rose petals and a bubble bath is like, no. And that totally ties in with memory, doesn't it? Because I think so many people really beat themselves up when they lose a word or they forget an appointment. And they go, oh, I'm such a failure. Oh, no, I'm insert all these negative things.
Absolutely. You know, after I dug through all my old emails and discovered what we were talking about today, which was memory issues,
Yeah.
I'd forgotten. I realized, I was like, well, what can I say about memory issues? And of course, we can talk about, you know, there's apps that you can use and the kind of like, there is a definite use it or lose it element to your memory. And as I spent a lot of my life as an actress and used to have an incredibly strong memory. So I get all that. But I think what's more important is what you've just talked about. Can you hear that Siamese cat howling, by the way?
No, not yet.
No, I'll just
No.
let her howl. my cat mum ovaries are going, but she's fine. She's got food and water. Is this element of the beating ourselves up, and it's not just with memory. I find it's anything that comes along with getting older or hitting peri or menopause, is that the amount of beating ourselves up and resistance that we have to these things, because the stories that we tell ourselves, you know, it's never just, oh, I've lost a word. It's, I've lost a word, therefore I'm an idiot, or turning into my mother, or getting old, or we make these stories and downward spirals over, I'm not as sharp as I used to be.
Which, when you put it into context, if a friend of yours lost a word, you'd just try and help them find the word. You wouldn't attach any judgment to that. You'd go, oh, Wendy can't think of the word we're about to use. Did you mean connection? I don't know, that's just a word that jumped into my head there. But you wouldn't then go, Jesus, Wendy's getting a bit old and past it, isn't she? Fucking hell.
Yeah, dear diary, had coffee with Wendy today. She lost a word. Idiot. You know, and yet we do that to ourselves.
Dear
Had
diary,
coffee with
mental
Emily
note to self,
today.
never invite Wendy for coffee again because she lost a word.
Idiot. You know, but that's what we do to ourselves. We lie in bed that night going, dear diary, couldn't, you know, almost forgotten appointment, or in my case, have forgotten entire appointments. What's wrong with me? I'm a terrible person. I'm losing my mind. And yeah, hormones definitely, I think we've all discovered, affect our ability to recall and memorize. There's definite brain fog issues, but I think we make things a lot worse for ourselves by then beating ourselves up, being horrible to ourselves, instead of just asking for help or helping ourselves.
Absolutely. And the thing is that once we go down the negative route, it becomes this self-perpetuating cycle, doesn't it? Because it releases more stress, which means the memory issues get worse because our memory really doesn't like us being stressed, because it at that point just goes, oh shit, saber-toothed tiger, run. You know, in a fight or flight situation, our brain is not caring about the finer details of semantics.
Or the shopping list, or who you're supposed to have a meeting with later. It does not care. All blood has gone to vital organs ready to run. You know, there's not much there for the cognitive thinking processes left for your brains anymore. They're not important, so they shut down when we're stressed, you know. But we stress ourselves out by the amount of self-violence and self-harm we cause ourselves, because we attach so much judgment and so much importance to forgetting some stuff.
And it's only human. It's human.
Isn't, you know, I feel like if there was a t-shirt we could give to everyone, it'd just be you're a human, you know, and humans forget stuff, and humans have brains that actually need to be taken care of and need to be taken out for a walk and need to be exercised. And if we, you know, I'm 45 now, and what I've noticed in the last sort of 5 years, as well as the impact of hormones and brain fog and all of that, I'm like, oh wow, I haven't really used my memory in the way that I used to when I was learning entire scripts. You know, it's funny about when I was an actress, people would always say, you know, how do you remember all those lines? And you're like, actually, that's the easy bit. You know, it's the coming up with the character. And, you know, there's so many different things about acting that's way harder than remembering the lines. And yet I know if someone handed me a script today, because I'm rusty, it would take me 2, if not 3 times longer than it did in my 20s to recall, because I'm rusty, not because I'm an idiot, not because I'm a useless person or worthless or need to hide in shame, just because I haven't used my brain in that way for a long time.
Absolutely. And you only have to look at this, you know, taking it out of the context of beating ourselves up. But, you know, if you watch a quiz show, for example, you know, if there are topics that come up that are topics that you're always thinking about because they're your, whatever your world is, you think, oh, that's just so easy, I just know that. But if it's ones that you haven't thought about and you're rusty on, it might not come as quickly, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't change your worth as a person, does it?
Yeah. And I think that's it. We equate being, you know, sharp or intelligent or a functioning human being with self-worth, when, like you said earlier, we would never judge other people in that way, you know.
No.
Like we don't see, I don't see like an 80-year-old woman walking down the street doing her best, you know, go like, you know, oh my God, she's not quick on her feet anymore, is she? Look at that. We just going like, she's used that body well and she's still with us. Excellent. So I think on a deeper level, what's going on when we start to lose our memory, and not that that's necessarily a permanent thing, but when it starts to get a bit wobbly around the edges, is that it brings a subconscious fear of dying. Subconsciously, we're being reminded, I might not be here forever. I have a shelf life, we all do. And it's one of the biggest fears, you know, I think it's up there with spiders, is that we're going to die, that we're mortal. There's a part of us that doesn't want to accept that. You know, that's why they get so much money out of us for face creams, because we don't want to accept a wrinkle. I'm doomed. It's like, well, newsflash, you were doomed from the day you were born. Sorry. You know? So I think accepting that I'm getting older, therefore I need more care. Like you know, it's just the same as taking some kind of krill oil, if you're me, for your joints, because my joints are a bit worn out now. You know, I've used them a lot, so they need a little extra support. And I found that when I was willing to just accept, oh, my memory's gone a bit wonky, how can I ask for support? And I think if you're accepting of that's what you're at and that you need certain things, you're way more likely to let yourself ask for support. For example, I used to be able to like have conversations with people and have 100% recall. That's gone. So now if I'm in the car, it's just gone. It was a thing of the past. I really enjoyed it while I had it. But now if I'm in the car and my husband wants to start talking about budgets and finances, not my fave subjects at the best of times, you know, but I have to remind him, this is not going to go in. And for me, that's just a way of having a boundary around my own self-care to say, I do want to talk about finances and budgets with you. It's a necessary evil in my life, but in the car, it's not going in. I need to have my laptop open and the spreadsheets and the numbers where I can see them. That's just how I work. And there's no shame in that.
Absolutely. And I look back to teenage me could multitask phenomenally. It used to drive my mother potty because my bedroom was at one corner of the house and Dad's study was at the other corner of the house. And Dad and I would do exactly the same thing. We would both have the telly on and the music on and be reading a book. But the music was very different. So Dad had Wagner streaming out and I had angry 90s grunge screaming out. Poor Mum is in the middle ironing, just like, make the noise stop. But I could be reading a book and know what was happening on the telly and listening to the music, and it didn't even... These days, if I so much as glance at Facebook and my partner says something to me, I'm like, sorry, my eyes were doing something, so my ears, they weren't.
Yeah, I totally get that as well. That ability to be able, and it's not, multitasking is a bit of a myth. It's actually task jumping. That
Yeah.
when you're used to doing that, you can jump from task to task to task. What happens to all humans as we age is that we lose the ability to jump from task to task to task without losing the focus of concentration. So if you, every time you jump, for example, even every time you switch tabs on your computer, you lose 5 whole minutes of that focus concentration level. If you, and then you think, well, if I jump to a third, then I lose another 5 minutes. It doesn't work like that. The more tabs you have open, you can get your concentration levels down on about 5 tabs open. And when I say tabs on your computer, that could be talking to your partner, having music on in the background, writing a thing, just different things going on. Your level of concentration goes down to about 15% spread out around all 5 things. So we're not good.
Which again shows up as memory issues, and again we start beating ourselves up. And it's being mindful of all these different areas in which actually we're probably pushing ourselves too hard. We're probably still trying to be 16. We're probably also trying to be all things to all people, and funnily enough, something has to give.
Yeah, but unfortunately what I find generally what happens is our kindness to ourselves,
Is what gives.
If that gives, we're just like, what's wrong with me? And it's like, well, no, there's nothing normal about being able to do 20 things at once. It's okay if that skill if you've burned it out. It's okay if you've burnt those gaskets and they're gone. I'm the same with my partner. He's learned, bless him. He, of course, was the first person to point out to me, he's like, wow, when you're watching TV, like if he wants to speak to me, he has to pause it to get my attention. And then I'm like, what? And he'd be like, I was just asking you what you want for dinner. But zero awareness of him, because I've literally got to that place where I can only do one thing at a time. And I did struggle with that at the start. I was like, you don't need to pause the TV. You can ask me. I'm fine. He's like, nah, it's not really my experience of you. But when I drop the self-violence and drop the whipping stick of myself, it just becomes, oh yeah, I need to do one thing at a time. So I can structure my life around doing one thing at a time rather than trying to force myself to be in a particular way that, let's face it, isn't sustainable. It's buying into hustle culture. It's buying into the idea that we're supposed to be machines when we're just not.
Absolutely. I think you've summed it up absolutely there. So I think that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Wendy.
You are so welcome. Right.